Morning. Yeah, there are a few names that are gapping over pivots, but tons and tons and tons of clean merchandise. So, I mean, we'll see. Yeah, names are really just rocking out there with the gap up. Morning, everybody. Yeah, nice gap up for sure. Morning, Pasquat. Morning, Gian. Stocky Pits. Jim, good morning. What are my thoughts on Pinduo Duo? Didn't they just report earnings? No good. Those are my thoughts. No good. Leave it alone. It's effectively all the way down, almost to April lows. So, and below the 200 simple moving average. We'd be having a different discussion if this thing were at $130 this morning. McKee, I don't worry too much about that. Best thing you can do is just let the market settle right at the open, and then, look for like a 5-minute opening range break. OS, a high type flag. Yeah, looks like a lot of the other names out there right now. It looks just a recent IPO. Yes, it is. Yeah, I don't see a ton wrong with this one. A little extended from the 50, but that's about it. Maybe a smidge of liquid. It depends how much buying power you have. You'd ask yourself like OS or Tesla, right? Similar kind of story with the high type flag. OS or, CEG. Similar kind of high type flag. OS or Carvana. OS or SE. Right? Like there's a lot of this going on right now out there, Varun. So I guess the real question becomes for you is which high type flag is better? That's the real question. Morning, Takeshi. Morning, Dominic. Jarmo, what's going on, brother? Yeah, I kind of mentioned these in the room yesterday, and I talked about a Carvana and an SE and AVGO and a few others as high type flag setups, but the issue is they are just a little bit extended from their 50. That is, kind of the issues that I'm seeing right now, but there are other setups too, like stocks that are cleanly bouncing off their 20 simple moving average. All right, so you've got other things while maybe some of these tighten up, but you're going to have the evidence if these are working fairly quickly, right? Do they just run up into that little level of supply and then just kind of retrace again and just still continue to build sideways? I mean, if they go sideways for another 3-4 days, that would be like the healthiest thing. But we'll see. And then obviously we have a big catalyst coming up on Wednesday with NVIDIA earnings. So before we just start needing to pile into a bunch of stuff, let's just see how NVIDIA's reacts to its earnings. Carvana's way up there too. Yeah, this thing's like 8 times its average daily range from the 50, just too far gone. Let me see. Yeah, 9.48 times its ATR from the 50. So my favorite group right now, there are a few. Man, there are a few groups going. There's the energy production group, kind of for like data centers. So your GEVs, CEG, VST, even Oklo, NNE, SMR, LTBR, so you got that. There's like the strong large caps basically. And then you've got your, small caps kind of running with it too. So you have that. Then and also obviously your uranium names, right? Mississippi, just mentioned them, CCJ, LEU, NXE, and then I don't like Oklo, for instance, Mississippi, as much as I like CCJ. Oklo has no legitimate way of making money right now, which is important. I mean, it doesn't matter for short-term momentum, but if you think you want to be a swing trader and then maybe even end up in a position trade, it's hard to end up in a position trade when the company you're holding makes no money. But that doesn't mean it can't make a huge move in the interim. Also, aerospace and defense is another group that's acting super well. And then what else is acting super well? Cybersecurity with like Oklo, Okta, Rubrik, CrowdStrike, Zscaler. So those are acting well. Obviously, CrowdStrike saw a new all-time high on Friday and gapping up a little bit this morning. Rubrik's just been vertical. Okta, new 52-week high recently. Zscaler, awesome. PanW trying to hang in there. So the cybersecurity group's hanging in there really well. And then semis are coming back to life, whether it's Marvell or NVIDIA or ALAB or TSM or AVGO. I mean, the semis are acting great too. So, I don't necessarily know that I have one favorite group, but I mean, I'm just trying to get myself positioned into the best groups. So just like locating them, locating the best acting groups, and then trying to get myself positioned in, the stocks that I think are acting best. And if they've got good earnings and sales, even better. So Rico, hell yeah, brother. I appreciate that. I'm glad that I've been able to help your trading, but that's just the reality too. Like when you're a swing trader, don't get caught up with like the new shiny toy of the day, right? There are always stocks out there going 50, 100, 200% in a day. Don't be mad that you didn't catch it, right? That's not your job. Your job is to focus and get all your money to work in the market for you safely in the best stocks in the market, not just some random old shit turd moving on some random crappy news. If it's meant to go higher, it'll go up. It'll be in a good group. It'll consolidate, and then it'll give you an entry, right? This whole, you're missing it, or, oh my God, it's up 200%. Like, how do I get in it? Right? None of that matters. So, just slow yourself down. Always think about, is it in a good group? Does it have good earnings and sales? Is the group showing momentum? Is it coming out of a tight area where I can manage risk? Focus on all the things you can control, and including your FOMO. What range do I prefer the ATR to be within the 50 SMA? So no more than, 4.5 times, right? Once we start to get to, 5 times is fine too for like small and mid caps, because they can be so violent and, go up much higher, like 10, 11, 12 times. But yeah, Dash is also on the watch list as well, Varun. But Chris, to answer you, really once like 7 times, I'm in the profit taking zone. And then every ATR above 7. So 7 times. So if the stock moves 4% per day, at 7 times it's ATR from the 50, right? I want to trim some. At 8 times, I want to trim some more. At 9, I want to trim some more. At 10, I want to trim some more. At 11, I want to trim some more. And I'm always trimming in 20% pieces of what I have left, not 20% of my original. So, again, if you had like 1,000 shares left and then the stock gets to 7 times, it's ATR from the 50, you're going to trim 200 shares. And then you're going to trim, 400 shares. And then you're going to trim, then you're going to trim. Is that right? When you have 1,000 shares left, you're going to trim 100 or 200, and that gets you down to 800. And then when you've got 800 left, you're going to trim 160. Sorry, my math was totally twisted. And then when you have 640 left, you're going to trim whatever that would be, whatever 20% of that would be. So just keep trimming in 20% pieces. Like 120, 130, I believe, something like that. So just trim in 20% pieces of what you have left. Yeah, Steve, thank you. And Steve did a super, super nice post. I want to shout out your X handle if you don't mind, but people could really benefit from that too. Let me see. Steve D. Jacobs on X, and he did a super, super nice ADR template. So yeah, as a stock gets extended from the 50, more than 7 times its average true range, you want to make sure that you're peeling off in pieces, ideally 20% of what you have left. And then, once you start to get to like 12, 13 times its average true range from the 50, like you effectively want to be out of the stock completely. No, I wouldn't think about this too much with Dash right now, Varun. It's just going, sideways still. And a little bit more sideways would be fine, but it really needs to get going over 209.64. So don't worry about it if it's going down. Just ignore it. Focus on it more when it starts to come back up. All right. 209.64 is a good level. I appreciate that, Steve. And Jeff's son. Jeff's son's got some brains too. Very brilliant. Yeah, there's a lot of these little high type flags, right? Where they come off the lows, little head and shoulders bottom, get back up above the 200 and tightening up. So we'll see kind of how, these names act, man. There's a lot of this going on right now. Ideally, a few more days of sideways, and then we've got, big day tomorrow with NVIDIA. You would think today's Monday and it's in 2 days from now, but nope, it is tomorrow. NVIDIA after hours. That will be super interesting. Oh, Chris, happy to help, man. Any interest in coin? Yeah, I do have interest in coin, but it needs just a little bit more sideways. Again, just same boat as all these others, right? This thing moves 5% per day, and we're almost 35% from the 50, right? So we're still kind of in that trim zone and not in the buy zone. So more sideways is good. Tightening up some more is pretty good. And as it relates to, these other crypto names like Mara, Riot, etc., they kind of act like crap. And then, they act pretty terrible, right? They rejected pretty hard off of their declining 200, right? Which has effectively been going nowhere for a while. Big pickup in volume against the 200 twice on Thursday and Friday, gap down, or should I say Wednesday and Thursday, Friday slight gap down, follow through. And I don't like what MSTR is doing right here. For some reason, it was acting really weak on this day when Bitcoin was at all-time high, and then Bitcoin comes off a little bit on Friday, and MSTR gets smoked. So something going on in that MSTR water, I'm not sure, but I wish I knew. If I were going to trade anything in the crypto space right now, I would trade IBIT, which is way more correlated. Right? So it's like however Bitcoin's going, IBIT's going. You got into Roblox? Yeah, I mean, you got into 73 effectively coming out of this little consolidation. So likely on 513 or even on, what was this, 513 or 512? And that's kind of what happens, right? It's like you're just in a stock and, if it's got good earnings and sales, which Roblox does, their earnings and sales are both growing. And then it's already in a nice trend, and then you get a nice little tight area to buy it out of. Now, I recommend always peeling some into strength. But obviously you can see how well this thing is respecting the 10 simple moving average. So I would say, don't go anywhere or even consider going anywhere until this thing is, firmly breaking its 10 simple moving average. I mean, don't even consider it. It's acting fantastic. So kind of my thinking for you. But, this is the kind of thing when it's got good earnings and sales and it's in a good trend, right? The stock's going to decide if it becomes a position trade. If you're able to hold it for, 12 weeks or something like that. All of my moving averages on the daily are simple. On the hourly, they're exponential. Nuclear stocks. Yeah, the only nuclear stock that I personally care about is CEG, GEV, and VST and CCJ. I don't really care about the more speculative ones like Oklo. I know it can move the most. It's got that culty kind of a feel. A little bit more retail friendly, I guess. But CCJ, if nuclear is going to make a big move, it's hard to argue against CCJ. I mean, you guys do realize they provide 10% of the world's enriched uranium. So they're the largest uranium miner in the world next to Kazatomprom, which is not publicly traded. So do I think Tesla looks good for an ad today? Maybe. It needs to get going over this consolidation. So the first spot I had for Tesla was it needs to get going over 348. So that would be the first spot that I would be watching it. But again, it's market dependent. I think that it's still a touch extended from the 50-day. And the last thing I really want to do is butcher my average. I've got such a nice average and a pretty big position too. So I don't really want to ruin it. And I'm up 55 points a share, but we'll see. Maybe a small ad or something. It's got to get really rolling over 348, and then the stop would be out lows of the day. When you enter a position, I always just trail with the 10-day. I know beyond that, you can kind of do a layer with the 20, 30, 50. I don't do the 30 too much. I actually don't even have one up on my charts, but yeah, the 10, 20, the 50, any recommendations to prevent early stop outs? Yeah. 1, peel into strength, and 2, as the moving average begins to catch up to your level, then use that. So like if the stock pulls back, so if a stock pulls, so let me give you a good example here. So when this thing was trending up and then Uber pulled back and found support on the rising 10-day, right? Then my stop became this 10-day, right? And not even just the 10-day, it actually became these lows, right? This little wick low at first. And then, even though this little wick low was just below the 10 momentarily, obviously you still hold. And then, now all of a sudden this area became my stop level. So even if this were to break the 20, it would be a trim for me, but I wouldn't be cutting the rest until it took out this low $80 level. So, which is effectively where the 50 is catching up to now. And that's because I'm in from lower. Now, there are ways that, like, when a stock acts really, really well, the 20 and the 50 will begin to catch up to, these higher lows a little bit faster. And then you're just using the 50. Ideally, you're looking for levels of higher lows. So if Uber were to push out from here, right, and go back to like 91, 92, right? So the way I would view it is this is a low, and then this would be a higher low, right? So like if this thing were to start to push back up to 90, then this would be your higher low. And so then this, not this level anymore, the $80 level, this $86 level would become my new stop. So I'm like slowly inching up my stop using those higher lows. And as long as the thing pushes back up and then just wants to go to sideways, it can go to 91, 92, come back to 86, 87. And as long as it just kind of keeps holding on to that $86, $87 level, then I would just be cool with just hanging on to it, even if it got below the 20, so long as the 50 is still turning up and hanging out above, price is still hanging out above the 50. So yeah, let the stock build higher lows against your key moving averages. Evan, I'm using simple moving averages for the daily. Yeah, correct, Charles. Yeah, just wait a few minutes till the open. And then just, see if we can get like these 5-minute opening range breaks. In the ideal world, right at the open, the market just gives a really nice check back, right? So it just like will look super ugly for like, I don't know, the first half hour or something, right? And then all of a sudden, stocks, some of them will start to act better before the others, right? So it's like from 8:30, I'm central. So from like 8:30 to like 9:15 or something like that, the market's just kind of slowly fading off, but we're still green on the day. And then all of a sudden, you can get a, nice little rebound from there. And we'll see what stocks are acting well. Now, I don't want to trade relative strength. I want to just track it. So like if the market's pulling back for like the first 45 minutes, I'm just going to keep my eyeballs on what's acting strongest. And then when the market itself starts to turn up, I would want to execute on the names that were showing relative strength. So I don't just want to like buy relative strength when the market's going down, because then I'm effectively fighting the overall trend of the market, which is down, even if it's just for an hour. Just wait, let the market start to turn back up, and make sure you've got your list of stocks that you already thought were actionable. Go through them while the market's fading off, see which ones are holding up best. And then when the market starts to turn back up, then you can start to execute on your setups, whether it be over prior day high, a red to green, 5-minute opening range break, a 620 setup off the lows. So, several ways that you can get into your stocks. But you don't trade relative strength in a down, on like a pullback. You just wait for the market to turn back up and you just track relative strength. No, Vince, great question. So if a stock gets to my trim zone, let's just say it gets to 7 ATR above the 50, but then the next few days goes flat, well, then its ATR won't surpass that 7. So I'll take my trim at 7, and then I'll just trail my moving average. If it gets to 8 times its average true range from the 50-day, I'll trim some more. Then 9 times I'll trim some more. But then at this point, we're not really going flat, right? We're actually still going higher. So that is something that I will be thoughtful of. And so what I'll do is if I get to 7 times ATR from the 50, I'll trim, and then I'll just hold as it's going flat, because it's still holding that ascending moving average. Like I won't mess with it anymore from there, right? I'll just let it trail that ascending moving average. But if it gets to 8, 9, 10, 11 times, it's actually still going up and it's not really going flat. So I am peeling off more into that. Yeah, I think spot is actionable today as a cup and handle setup. Yeah, looks good. Looks a lot like CrowdStrike did on Friday. Do I have a max portfolio percent risk per day? I look at individual stocks, right? I mean, if I had no money working in the market, um, oftentimes, like if I'm trading like these more large cap names, which I typically am, like large and mid cap names, sometimes my stop level is like 2% for my entry, 3% for my entry. So if I put a 10% position on, I'm only risking 0.3%. And I don't have like a per day. So it's a setup by setup basis. But like I know if I took one loss and then I took a second loss and then I take another loss, like it's not usually my setups. It's the trading day. But I usually don't have like a thought like that, like, oh, I can only take so many setups or I can only lose so many percent per day. D-Man, great question. So oftentimes before a stock ever gets to 7 times its ATR above the 50, I'm normally already out a third to a half. Depends the stock, right? I've trimmed all of my longs with the exception of Tesla, because Tesla, when I got into it, I knew I was going to hold the full position regardless. But normally I'm out about half my position. I mean, even sometimes just a third. But like, let's say I'm buying a stock coming out of a tight consolidation. I'm looking for like a little 3 to 5 day push. And then right after that 3 to 5 day push, I trimmed, call it a third. And then let's just say I had 3,000 shares and I just trimmed, right? I just trimmed 1,000 shares. Well, if I got 2,000 shares left, then we get 7 times its ATR from the 50, right? I'm trimming 400 shares. Then I got 1,600 shares left. Then on my next trim on 8 ATR, I'm trimming 320 shares, right? And then that's how I do it until I start to whittle myself down in 20% pieces as extensions from the 50. No, I don't really trade fresh IPOs. I'll trade them after maybe several months and their lockup period is over. So once the lockup is done, then I'll trade them. Do I have backtesting trailing the full positions? Yeah, in some instances it's worked really, really well. In some instances it's worked terribly. Right? I trailed the full position in Toast when I bought it back in September, and I trailed it using once it got up here into the 40s, I was using the 200, and of course I literally got stopped out at the friggin' lows on this thing, and then I rebought it back, like $10 higher. So I tried to trail the 200. It broke the 200 because the market sucked. And so, yeah, in some cases it works really well. In some cases, not so well, I guess. No, I'm not interested in UNH. I don't really care for stocks. I don't really care for stocks that are below their 200 day. How often am I using leverage or margin? Oh, whenever the market allows for it. It hasn't allowed me to get fully leveraged or margined right now. So oh, Russell, you're welcome, man. I'm helpful. I'm glad that it helped you out. It's a nice scan. Helps you really look for momentum. But yeah, try to get on margin as quickly as I can if the market's friendly. $197,520. My thoughts on NUTX. It's in a super uptrend. I don't know that I would trade this personally until it built a bigger base. It's up quite a bit. But I mean, it looks good. Really, I mean, it's an insane trend. Do I think having ES or NQ futures position when the market is above, apart from stock, have you ever considered this? Do you think of having ES or NQ futures position when market is above? No, I don't. I don't really want to trade. I know they provide awesome leverage, but I don't really trade them. Any thoughts on AEVA? Another one that made a sweet move. Just would need more sideways is all. Yeah, Rico. Oddity was good. And then you also had the high volume close. So definitely something that was buyable. Again, back through 11 or what was it? 100 and was it 106? What the hell was it? 61.44. Not even looking at it out of the $61.44 is the high volume close. Yeah, AVA just needs more sideways. Yeah, Oddity was interesting back through 61.44. Obviously, you had the gap down, and then it got bought right back up through 61.44. It's doing a really, really nice job of sticking around, honestly. Yeah, AVGO as well. AVGO, Carvana, SE. Some of these names aren't doing anything wrong. They're just going sideways. Yeah, AVGO is acting fantastic. Do I like RELY? It's not bad. Super tight. Needs to get going. Plenty liquid. Trade 70 million bucks a day. Back up above all key moving averages. Not too extended from the 50. Yeah, AVGO is a nice one. Yeah, RELY not bad. Yeah, HSAIX totally fine. I actually have a long in HSAI from just under 20 bucks. Should be a fun day today. Honestly, we got a lot to focus on this this upcoming week. Should really be a great week. When do I decide to have an entry on a 5-minute chart compared to 1 hour, for example? Is this a setup thing or something else? Um, I personally usually prefer the 5-minute and just like a 5-minute opening range break, or like a breakout over prior day high, just a simple 5-minute chart. But the 60-minute can be give you a tight chart as well. But I usually just prefer like a simple 5-minute. My eyes are always on the daily, so I'm always thinking about the daily. What does the daily look like when I go to get positioned in something? Looks like the market didn't like DJT raising some more money. Everybody wants to roll over. But yeah, Kaysen, I wish I had a better answer for you, man. I like the I really like the hourly chart as well, but that's normally for like when after I'm in. Most of my entries do occur on a 5-minute chart, but I'm always thinking about the daily. Like, what's the daily look like, and timing it out with the market. Like, I always want to time my buys, in the market, like as the market's going higher. Like, I want to track relative strength, but then, like I said, I don't really trade relative strength when the market's going down. I trade relative strength when the market's going back up. No, Dominic. No, it's two issues here. One, AVGO still slightly extended from the 50, right? AVGO is still just a touch extended from the 50, considering, it only moves 3.3% per day, and we're about 7 times its ATR from the 50. So I'll tell you exactly what it is right now. Hold on. AVGO is 6.44 times its ATR from the 50. So really not something that I would be buying, with NVIDIA's earnings tomorrow. If NVIDIA gaps up, tomorrow on good earnings, then AVGO could very well be viable. Then it could be absolutely viable. My thoughts on Shopify? I think it's the best name in Canada. Yeah, could be a higher low setup. Needs to get going over $103, which it is right now. Even over 106 could be pretty interesting too. That's really what it's got to get going. I thought it looked interesting back over $100, and it kind of gapped over that for the NASDAQ 100 inclusion. So I don't hate it. Let me set an alert on it, actually. Yeah, Palantir also looks good as a higher low setup. Same with Uber. There are quite a few names out there that look awesome, honestly, that aren't super extended. Whew. Yeah, something looks wrong with MSTR. Something looks broken in that name right now. NNE private placement, PDD down 21% on earnings. My goodness. Yeah, I'm not into these crypto treasury stocks, to be honest with you. You know, the biggest crypto treasury stock out there is MSTR, and it's not acting all that well. I'm not going to go out there playing these ASSTs or the CEPs or the DJTs of the world. Like ASST is acting a little crazy. Not charts I like trading. Yep, another private ASST, private investment. Yeah, I can't do this crap. I don't need to put these names in my portfolio. Too many other. I put out a giant watch list last night. You know, I don't need to be in these names. I got way more than enough merchandise that I can buy. Prath, it depends. You mean on Palantir? Like Palantir, I want to see 127 get taken out. This kind of ugly red day. 127.11 is the spot that I would be watching. Yeah, VST is definitely breaking out of the flag consolidation. Looks pretty interesting along with CEG. Just again, similar issue with a bunch of these. They're just a touch extended from the 50, but this one less than others. Looks pretty good. CEG too. Yeah, Palantir right at 127 right now. Uber at the higher low spot as well. You know, bouncing right off the 20, at least trying to. You know, we'll see if the market gives it some follow through today, but effectively over prior day high looks really good. Thanks, babe. What'd you make? Oh, all right. PRCH, it had a nasty fail a few weeks ago. Yeah. Needs to get back going over 1065. You know, keeps rejecting right at this little 1065 level, which I had a line at, which was the high volume close of this earnings day, 5.7. So, yeah, that one's definitely an interesting one. Yeah, I see SBET ripping, whoever mentioned it. Oh, shoot, 1022 or 822. Guys, I got to get out of here. Got to start stream. I will see you guys tomorrow morning, 23 hours from now. Thank you guys for being here and all the awesome questions. And I'll see the rest of you guys in the room. Thank you guys all for the great day and great morning. Awesome start. And we will see you guys in a couple hours. Cheers. Thanks, Steve. Thanks, Pete. Roger, Mississippi Trader. I'm waiting for you to ask a question in the middle of the day, man. All right, Toro. Have a good one. Prath, nice to see you, man.